decades, there has been a significant pay gap between men and women in our country.
The Department of Labor says in Washington state, women make 79 cents for every dollar that a man makes. Nationally, it's 82 cents for every dollar a man makes. This morning, we have Maria Colacurcio from Syndio to dig a little deeper on this. Syndio, a Seattle-based company that uses technology to identify pay inequities within these companies so changes can be made. Maria, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, and thanks for taking on this topic.
That's such an interesting topic and an important one. So Syndio works with these companies every day on the issues like this. How would you describe the severity or the state of the gender pay gap here in Washington state right now?
It's severe, and it's severe everywhere. And I think one of the things that people aren't aware of is the glacial pace against which we're making progress. So the pace was actually worsened by COVID. So the pandemic sent the wage gap back 3 decades. And even amongst this intense scrutiny from legislators, investors, and employees to close it. So it's bad, and we're not making the kind of progress that we could be.
And so your company helps businesses undergo a pay equity analysis. What type of feedback are you getting about the results, and what are companies doing about it once they get those results?
Yeah, great question. So our company is a workplace equity analytics platform. So we enable companies to analyze and resolve pay and opportunity gaps that are because of things like gender, race, and ethnicity. And it's really important because the future of any modern company is to embed this into their core. And so when our clients do that, when they actually make workplace equity a core tenet of great leadership and long-term value creation, they see a big change in how their employees engage with them. They see a big change in how institutional investors address them, because they know this is going to be a company that's durable, that's modern, and that has low rates of attrition because their employees trust them.
What's the reaction that you typically get when you tell these companies, the results that you found?
Yeah, I think most companies are aware, and we like to tell them that anytime you have discretion across large populations, it's going to favor the majority. So it's kind of like looking at an old car. If you haven't raised the hood and done maintenance in a while, you're going to find issues. And so for companies, it should come as a relief to know that if you haven't looked, you're likely going to have issues. But the good news is, once you look and you start staying on top of it over time, so instead of doing a once a year reactive audit, starting to get preventative and proactive, you're going to be able to whittle that remediation down. Remediation meaning what you have to pay people when you find those gaps. If you stay on top of it over time, kind of like maintenance, you're going to be able to prevent that and ultimately get that number down to 0. So that's the really good news, is if you haven't done it, expect to find some stuff, but also expect that with technology and analytics, you can get ahead of it and then prevent it.
Maria, you're a working mom of 7. I'm a working mom. I mean, how do women like us find out what the pay gap is, and then what do we do about that?
Yeah, so that's one of the things that's happening right now with the acceleration of pay transparency legislation. So Inslee just signed a bill for Washington state, and this would make it easier to answer those questions, because what it requires is that every company with over 15 employees has to post salary ranges of open jobs. And this legislation is accelerating across the country. So it's not just Washington state. This has been passed in New York City, New Jersey, Colorado, Oregon. And there's also a median pay gap disclosure bill in the works in California. So what this means is now we have a little more access to transparent pay. But the questions we should always be asking potential employers to see if they value their people, both for who they are and the contributions they bring, are things like, do you do pay equity analyses? How often? Do you share a summary of results? And the answers that you don't want to hear, the red flag answers, are no, we don't do that, or we outsource this to lawyers, or we can't tell you what the results are. Those are things you want to stay away from.
Yeah, a lot of work to be done there. Maria Colacurcio is the CEO of Syndio in Seattle, helping to close the gender pay gap. Thanks for joining us this morning. Really important stuff.
Thanks for having me.